Kirk, you know, we also heard the state argue and point out that, in fact, as Susan mentioned, this defendant was wearing clothing that essentially covered his whole body, and that the nails were cut very short. As the timeline, I mean, did she cut it herself? Did someone cut it for her? You know, so does that really minimize, and how much does that minimize the fact that there is not that DNA evidence present?
Well, I agree with Susan, Joy. I think that he could have been wearing clothing, he could have been wearing gloves, he could have been the long clothing, and maybe she wasn't able to scratch areas of open skin. So certainly, it's a factor for the defense to argue. A slender reed, perhaps that they've got, but with the other mountain of circumstantial evidence, it's a very difficult case for them.
Yeah, I mean, so what do they try to argue in closing arguments then in that case? I mean, you got not only everything that we've been discussing, but the fact that it's her blood that's been proven to be all over his vehicle and on a multi-tool that he owned. Both of their DNA is on it. So is the argument that actually someone else was in his car using his multi-tool, Kirk?
I think that's got to be it, right, Joy? I think that has to be it. It's look at this young man. He doesn't, as I understand it, he doesn't have any history of this. He's a nice person, according to his girlfriend. He doesn't have any criminal history. Does this really fit the profile of someone who, I mean, the very violence of this assault just sort of cries out for this person must have done something like this before, right? I mean, it's just incredibly shocking. And so I think that's what the very shocking nature of it is what they're going to try to juxtapose with this young man that they see before them.
Well, Susan, I mean, obviously we know that, being a nice guy or being perceived as a nice guy is not a legal defense. But this argument of it being out of character, how strong is that? Because clearly there wasn't a lot of planning that went into it. There was blood all over the vehicle.
Right. But and what I'm looking for here, and I think what we're talking about underneath all of this is the motive. These are clearly, from what I understand, strangers, and it's very odd. It's not the norm for stranger on stranger murders like this. Usually, it's someone that the victim knows, and so is it out of character? I mean, that, like you said, that isn't a legal defense. I'm still trying to figure out what the motive is here.
Right, and that is a mystery, and I'd like to unpack that with you a little bit further as we continue our coverage of South Carolina versus Nathaniel